Following is a paid program by Karl Sterling. The content of the show is that of Karl Sterling and does not represent the views of this station or iHeartMedia. Some of the information contained in this program has not been approved by the FDA, nor is it intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any diseases. Information hereafter is for general information only, and before considering anything discussed, you should contact your doctor or primary care physician.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you smaller.
Your Health Matters with Karl Sterling on NewsRadio 570 WSYR on 106.9 FM and live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
I take a couple uppers, I down a couple downers, but nothing compares to these blue and yellow purple pills.
Bring you the latest in health and wellness so you can get to the other things that matter. Here is your host, Karl Sterling.
All right. Good morning, Syracuse, New York. Good morning, everyone. Great to be back here live in the studio. Last week I came at you from Nashville, Tennessee, and staying with my friend Don down there. We were, spent the weekend doing a lot of training and formatting for the new and first affiliate neuromotor training program in Lebanon, Tennessee. So thank you, Don, for your hospitality and your friendship and your support, and Tony and Cindy and everybody. So we're looking forward to that program starting up September 4th. So here we are in Syracuse, and wow, we got a lot to say today. I'm with my amazing and wonderful co-host, Elizabeth Brusa. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I feel awake now.
Good. You had your coffee.
Yep, sure did. Producer Dave, how you doing?
I'm good. Good morning, Karl. How are you?
Producer Sarah, how you doing? Good. Okay, good, good. Thank you for what you guys do, because you make our jobs smooth and easy.
You're welcome.
We got a show 2 hours packed with stuff. The first hour is a special friend of mine who we're going to bring on in a couple of minutes. He's with us, right? He called in? Oh, okay, cool. So we're going to bring on a very good friend of mine very shortly. You're going to want to hang in there for this, because you all know him, you all love him, Dr. Perry Nickelston. But first, before we get started, the book of the week this week is the same book as it's been the past week or two. It's called Good Energy, and it's by Dr. Casey Means, M-E-A-N-S. I can't say enough good about this book. She's been on the biggest shows out there, the biggest radio stations, the biggest podcasts, and she is going to join me to record on August 20th. I don't know what air date it will be, but it's the full 2-hour deal. She's a best-selling author. She is the co-founder of a company called Levels, which is doing amazing things. And then her podcast is actually the podcast of the week this week. It's called A Whole New Level. So I've made a new page on my website, which is karlsterling.com. That's Karl with a K, of course. And if you go there and look up book podcast of the week, go to that tab on the top, just click it, and you'll see there's only two things right now because I just made it yesterday. Good Energy is the book of the week. A Whole New Level is the podcast of the week. Click on that stuff. Go and check out the book. Buy the book. Buy the book. Okay, and then the Whole New Level, listen to that podcast. She has, the experts of all experts on there. We have updated our website, so I'm urging you, if you're interested in daily insights, to go and sign up for the daily text messaging and the email list. Okay, we'll keep you up to date with health nuggets, longevity nuggets, as we call them. Show recordings are all there on 5 different platforms: YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. What else we have? SoundCloud and iHeart. And, of course, our services are on there, too. So without further ado, or as a friend of mine used to say, without further to do, sorry, I had to say that. Are you excited about this?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because Perry is the man. He's my brother from another mother.
Yes.
And anytime he's on, it's like brain candy and knowledge bombs.
Yes, I've listened to you interview him a couple times now since I've started working with you.
Yeah, and I stole those two things from him. Brain candy and knowledge bombs. So let's bring on very special guests. The one, the only, the man, the myth, and the legend, Dr. Perry Nickelston. How you doing, brother?
Hey, my friend. Great to be back. And to everyone there, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That lymphatic episode we did is among the very most listened to of all the radio shows. And,
I'm happy to hear that. That makes me really, really happy inside because the lymphatics will change your life. That's great.
Lymphatic mojo, man. So, Doc,
That's right.
I was reading something yesterday in preparation for today. And this thing I read yesterday actually comes from Dr. Casey Means and the Levels website or podcast with Dr. Lustig, Robert Lustig out of San Francisco, another leader in the field. Love that guy, right? So they are saying that 58% of the food available to us, whether it's in the supermarket or restaurants or whatever, 58% is processed or ultra-processed. And basically, if we look back in time, I'm assuming this is relevant to what we're going to talk about today, which is gut health and inflammation, because it's slowly killing us. And I just wonder what you think of all this. 58%, man.
Well, I agree with it. You're probably going to find in the coming years, that's going to increase, actually. And I love both of those individuals, and I have their books. I'm so glad you recommended her book. It's a fantastic read. I'm actually going through it for a second time now.
Me too.
It's a great one. Yeah.
I'm a horrible reader. Like I get the audiobook first. Then if I like the audio, I buy the hard copy. So I have the hard copy, and it's like my arm. I can't go anywhere out without it. So
that's a great way to learn. I actually do both as well. I buy both. I buy the audio and I buy the book because I learn different things through each one of those different sensory ways that it goes in. It may stick with me one time where it didn't stick with me another time.
Same here. So can you share more with us just about, I want you to just take over here. I'll interrupt for breaks as needed, but when we look at what's happened with leaky gut, leaky brain, inflammation, pain, disease, diabetes, obesity, cancers, insulin resistance, metabolic dysfunction, inflammation, gut health is a big part of this. I would say as a root. Is that true?
I would agree with that, yeah. And I think the longer you've been sick and you're not finding any answers to what might be going on, you're usually going to find it linked back in some way, shape, or form to gut health. And I think it was Hippocrates, somebody really, really smart in the past said, disease will be linked to the gut. Yeah. And that kind of makes physiological sense anyway, right? Because one of the things that I learned along the way with this is that the largest surface area of the body exposed to the outside world is actually not the skin. It's your gut.
Really?
It's your gut.
Oh, yeah.
Most people, when I ask that question, what is it, they usually reflexively say the skin, but it's not even close. Because everything that you put into your mouth, no matter what it is, your body and your gut has to deal with it. So first you should be thinking, maybe it's a good idea to put better stuff in than bad stuff in. And because it has to be broken down to turn into the energy that your cells need to heal, recover, and regenerate. And they can only work with what you stick in there. That's a piece of it.
Yeah.
That's actually a small piece. The first piece is, what do you put in your mouth? But we'll get into it the longer we go through. That doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with what actually gets absorbed into the body. Those are two different things. What goes in doesn't necessarily go into the cells or necessarily get out of the body. It can be trapped in there. So I jokingly say, but I'm really not joking, is that if you have chronic pain, if you have an autoimmune disease of some type, you're going to have inflammation. And when you have the inflammation, you're going to have a gut issue. The primary reason is this. The largest portion of your immune system, which is the system that tries to kill things that are trying to kill you, are located in your gut. So that right there tells you it's one of the most important areas of the body you need to look at whenever somebody has inflammation, because inflammation is actually an immune system response, not a musculoskeletal response.
Wow. Yeah, right.
That's big, all right?
Yeah.
So if you come in to see me and you have chronic pain or an autoimmune disease, there's some gut work we need to do. It just depends on where it is, how far along is the inflammation, and what we need to do about it.
Well, that is really interesting. I was just, with Lustig yesterday reading. I have, a bunch of his books that I've loved that guy for a long time. And just exactly what you said, I can finally resonate to better now because I've been studying this a lot more the past couple of years. The whole thing about what is outside of your body that you end up putting in it needs to, it's used and broken down. It's supposed to turn into energy. And of course, hence the title of Casey Means' book, Good Energy instead of Bad Energy. It would seem to me like inflammation might be a form or side effect of bad energy. Like, I don't know where I heard this, but I heard somewhere that we have to go to, so I'm going to make just a little statement here. We'll go to break and then we'll come back. So it'll be a short break, but something about your cells in your body don't know how to handle some of the processed stuff because it's not natural and it just wants to reject it, so it sends it to the wrong places, and your mitochondria doesn't get fed. You don't get the energy you need and the regeneration and the growth. So, friends, we're going to run out for a break here. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with Dr. Perry Nickelston, and so great to have you here, Doc. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're back. This is Your Health Matters. My name is Karl Sterling. Joining me is my my good friend and my co-host Elizabeth Brusa, and of course our special guest is Dr. Perry Nickelston, the doctor of all doctors, in my opinion. So Perry, I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but Elizabeth and I we was talking on the break. I know proper grammar though, but anyways, you have a question, don't you?
Yes, I do. I was wondering, Dr. Perry, what are the autoimmune diseases that are associated with gut health?
Well, I'm going to contend every single one you could possibly list off, and probably ones they haven't even connected yet, because the gut health is going to be linked to your body's ability to control inflammation and your immune response. So when your immune system goes bananas haywire, you can get any diagnosis you want. So to me, it really doesn't clinically matter what it is. It's going to be tied to your gut health in one way, shape, or form.
So, like,
okay? And yeah, you name it.
I have a thyroid. I'm hypothyroid, and I know I have Raynaud's. I never pronounce it right, but Raynaud's.
Raynaud's. Okay.
Yeah. How would you go about changing that with your gut?
That's a great question. So let me kind of go back a little bit and talk about some fundamentals, if I may.
Sounds good.
Because, see, the one thing that I ran into, Carl, for myself and others, is that I have people that, have gut issues, and they change their nutrition, so they stop eating the bad stuff and eat more of the good stuff, and they start taking some supplements and things like that. And they can move the needle a little bit on feeling better, but sometimes they hit a wall, or it doesn't make a difference at all. And then they get frustrated because they're like, I'm taking all these supplements and I'm changing my nutrition, and I still don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more to it than just the gut. The whole body works together as a unit. So let's talk about when you eat a supplement or you eat food. That's just step number one in the digestion process. That's where you ingest something. So right away, if you just don't eat bad and you eat better or good, you're off to a better start, because now you have better fuel going into your tank. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it goes in, but then you have to break that down. That's called digestion, and that starts in the stomach. Actually starts in your mouth with your saliva, but it's going to start in your stomach through stomach acid. And you'll find that most people don't have an adequate amount of stomach acid because of the chronic, incessant, never-ending stress that they're under, which automatically decreases stomach acid production, and decreases blood flow to the gut because your body says, hey, man, I don't have time to eat because I got to not die right now because it's hard to digest something when you're dead. So survival takes the name of the game. So automatically, you're not able to break down the stuff you just put in there. And when you do break it down, then it's got to actually go and be absorbed into the cells itself. It's got to get to a cell for absorption. And you'll find the only way it's going to get to a cell is through blood flow. Okay?
Yeah.
And people automatically, I told you before, have a decreased blood flow in the gut already. So then they struggle to actually absorb the nutrients because they can't get there, or they're absorbing crappy things that you give it to work with. And when the cell actually uses that, it creates energy. Now you're going back to that book. That's called metabolism, right? Because it's going to try to make a new cell, heal, recover, and regenerate. And whenever a cell makes energy, guess what it does? It poops. It creates waste. It's called metabolic cellular waste. And then that has to get out too. And you'll find that most people, they have poor blood flow into an area. They have poor blood flow out of an area. They have stagnated lymphatic systems because of the inflammation. So now the waste products in the body can't get out as optimally as they should. And guess what that feeds?
Constipation.
More inflammation. More inflammation. So inflammation on top of inflammation on top of inflammation. And when the body gets inflamed, it's going to attack you in your most vulnerable or weakest areas that you have that you might not know that you have until you build up enough inflammation. And for you, that might be your thyroid. For somebody else, it might be their knee, it might be their back, it might be their brain, whatever. So when I look at the gut, my first thing is I tell people, you can't just look at the gut. It's not an isolated piece of the body, and guts and brains, you know this from your Parkinson's work, they go hand in hand. Like
100%.
If you have a gut issue, you got a brain issue. If you got a brain issue, you got a gut issue. And the brain is going to communicate and tell your thyroid gland what to do as well. So you see how many pieces of the puzzle are going here? But the thing I want people to understand is it's not just about eating better and taking more supplements. It's about some other things that you can do that I'll tell you later that it can possibly make a huge difference for you when you're still struggling for inflammation. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, and I forget what chapter. Might be the first chapter of my Parkinson's book, which you wrote the foreword for, which I'm forever grateful for that, Doctor.
It was my honor.
And your belief and your, belief in what we do here. So in that book, I believe it was my son's contribution. Okay, I get to brag a minute. He's a PhD and he's an MD. The two of you guys got to meet someday, Doc. You guys have really hit it off.
Yes, we do.
You will.
I'd love to meet him.
You will. So we look at the gut health, and I think Lustig and a bunch of others. I forget Dale Bredesen, who I talked with the other day. He talks about the inflammation in the gut problems, the gut health issues, making its way over a period of time. It could be decades. In fact, he even says, Bredesen says, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's can live in the gut 10, 15, 20 years before it finally makes its way probably up the vagus nerve and ends up in the brain somewhere. What does that make sense to you? Because that's a connection right there, man. That vagus nerve is.
Yeah, based on what I'm seeing in the current research in relationship to neuroinflammation in the brain, that's the route that they're seeing that it goes up there, and then you're going to get the inflammation in the brain, right?
Yeah.
And like I said before, is that these body parts you can't separate them. I jokingly say that first of all, your body doesn't even know what these part names are called. It doesn't know it has a stomach and it has a brain. It's just one piece.
Yeah, that's like you said last time. Your body doesn't label anything. It works as one. We label things.
Yeah, and that's where everything goes crazy bananas off the rails because the body doesn't think like you think. And that's where we get lost. So what happens is you have to start thinking like how the body thinks. Everything tries to help each other all the time. And I'm so glad you brought this point up here is because things happen over time, like, years, if not decades. And then all of a sudden, like yesterday you didn't have this problem, and all of a sudden today, out of nowhere, you got this problem. What I need people to realize is that it doesn't happen overnight like that. That's the difference between an acute traumatic injury where if you slip and fall and you hit your knee, and then, A equals B. I know why my knee hurts. Or if I eat something, I got food poisoning, then I know the answer. But if it's like yesterday I didn't have knee pain or I wasn't doubled over in pain in my gut, and today I do, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
That's where you usually have to trace back your history, and that inflammation will settle in to wherever in the world it wants to. But you have to remember that inflammation is not a bad term either, like stress. Stress isn't bad. Mm-hmm. If you didn't have stress, you would actually be weaker and less resilient and die faster. It's the same thing with inflammation. If you didn't get inflammation, you'd be dead in a day. The thing is you need to be able to see, why can't I control that inflammation? So maybe one, you keep putting stuff into the body that's causing the inflammation. That's the not so great food, right? But then maybe there's something that's still inside of the body that can't get out. So even if you do put good stuff in, you stay inflamed. That's why the lymphatics that we spoke about last time is so important, and why blood flow is important. Because if you have a reduction in blood flow, this is really important. If you have a reduction in blood flow to your gut day after day, week after week, year after year, decade after decade, because of chronic stress, physical, mental, emotional, being alive on this planet, slowly over time, you're going to strangle off any tissue's ability to heal and recover and regenerate, and it's going to break down. And you got to get inflammation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you have to look at blood flow to the gut.
Yeah. Well, let me make a comment here. First of all, this is one of the things I have in my notes to talk about in a little while, but I'm going to bring it up now. What you said, we were referring to is this over time, okay? Because it's not like you eat something that's really bad for you, and then all of a sudden you just keel over or something, or you're sick and you're in the hospital, or another example, just you have too much to drink one night. You smoke a pack of cigarettes. You're not dead yet. You might not feel that good, but maybe you don't feel that bad. It's not like you're not dead yet. And all I could say, I've been trying to think of, and we're going to go to a break in a minute, Doc. So we're going to come back soon, but I've been trying to figure out how to articulate. Maybe you can do this after the break. What is it that keeps me and others coming back to some of these few things I eat that are highly, probably inflammation index is pretty high, but, I can't seem to break all those bad habits yet, but I'm not dead yet, so it's like it's not doing anything now to me, but in 20 years, hey, But anyways, we got to head out to break, folks. This is Your Health Matters, 570 WSYR. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Thank you. All right, we're back. I want to read a little statement here. The food industry makes $700 billion a year, but we lose $1.9 trillion, cleaning up the mess. That is not sustainable. It is unsustainable, and that's why healthcare has gone to blank in a handbasket, and it's so expensive. I know that my insurance company doesn't want to deal with my provider as of January 1st. I mean, I'm tempted, what do I want to do? Get a new provider? No, I really like my doctor. I could go to the hospital if I needed, but I think I'm just going to work at being really, really healthy, so I don't need to go to the doctor. I haven't decided yet, but the price is going to go up because they're not paying any reimbursements worthy of their time, and that's the problem. So the food industry makes the disease, and I'm not saying all the disease. I mean, there are other things, there's smoke, there's drinking, there's all kinds of stuff behaviors and drugs and, any kind of addictions maybe that can lead to problems. But then Big Pharma is only happy to treat it because that's how they make their profit. So the gross profit margin of the food industries, 45% of farmers from farm. I think I'm reading this wrong, so I'm going to skip it because I think maybe AI didn't help me out this week on that particular stat. But Food is twice as lucrative as pharma. Well, that's big money. That's big money. So the fact of the matter is they're not going to give this up without a fight. So we just need to know about this so we can make informed decisions. And if we continue to feed ourselves crappy stuff, well, we have to know that we're going to pay a price, maybe not now, but someday. So we were talking on the break with Dr. Perry Nickelston. We got on the phone. We're just talking about this. What is it about, I ate that hot dog now and I'm not dead, so I could eat another one tomorrow or next week. But someday all this stuff's going to catch up to us, right, Doc? Somehow, some way, it's got to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, it will. I mean, that's just the laws of nature and physics. Everything has a capacity breaking point to it. Like I always look at engineering. You can design these things, these structures with a certain amount of stress point. How much stress can it take before it breaks? Everything will eventually have a breaking point, no matter what it is. That's just the laws of the universe. So your body is actually designed to take hits. That's called life. Right? Mm-hmm. But it's how much and how often, right? So you could have this big dose where what I call a macro trauma. So for instance, let's say I punched you in the arm. Well, there you go. Like I said before, A equals B. But what if I slowly took my finger and gently tapped you on that arm? You don't really feel it in the beginning. But if I did that for a week, it's going to feel like I punched you in the arm. That's called micro trauma that builds up over time. So it's not the single hot dog that takes you out. I mean, it actually can if you built up to so much where your body says, okay, I've been dealing with this long enough. You eat one more hot dog, I'm going to take you out. That's it. Then you're going to get the inflammation and the pain and the brain fog and the fatigue and the soreness and the tightness, and you go to your doctor with all these things, and they can't find anything on blood work. You can pretty much bet that's something that's creeping up on you. So it's over time. It's like, how many hot dogs, but also what are you eating in relationship to that hot dog? But it's also the rest of your life. If you're under a lot of physical stress, emotional stress from work, a poor relationship, that's going to change your autonomic nervous system and increase your stress response, which decreases your body's ability to break down what you're sending into it, and you're eventually going to break down your body because it can only stay in that mode for so long. So all these things add up to make this what you might want to call a perfect storm. That's also one reason why you can't miraculously take one supplement or change your diet and get healed in a week.
Yeah,
it takes time.
It takes time too.
Basics and fundamentals, little and often over the long haul, that will build it back up. All right.
Yeah.
So you are correct.
Well, it's
what's actually.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to say something too. When you
Sure.
were talking about that food thing, I saw this meme once on Instagram that really hit home. It's like the difference between like going into a veterinarian when you have a sick pet, as to going into a medical doctor when you're sick, you have somebody sick in your family. You go to the regular medical doctor, they usually ask you, what medications are you on, right? Because they're assuming you're probably on one, or you can bet you they're going to put you on something, right? Which I'm not saying is not necessary. I don't want you to suffer. But if you go into a vet, the first thing they ask you is, have you done anything differently with your pet's diet?
Mm-hmm.
Did you give it a new food it never had before? Because you learn that lesson quick when you have a pet. Because if you do that, you're going to have messes all over your house.
Yeah,
because
right.
you shock the system. So the first thing you need to ask anybody who has chronic disease or an autoimmune disease is, tell me about your life, not just what you ate last week, but the course of your life over the last 20 years, going back as far as you can remember. It's going to be a piece of the puzzle, man.
Yep. Okay, so I'm just thinking here. I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend as actionable steps that, of course, like you said, I'm so glad you said it takes time, right?
Yep.
If somebody's not moving well, they can't get up out of a chair anymore. It's usually not because something happened yesterday. It's because they just got to a point where after a certain amount of time of slowly deconditioning, they just can't do it. Well, we can get them back to getting up out of the chair much faster than they declined in most cases. But this is going to take time to heal. And we don't know how much time, but knowing that it's going to take some time and consistency, if we have a plan, what would you recommend? Let's say somebody, they're dealing with some autoimmune, and let's just say we absolutely know there's gut inflammation. What's the first step? What can we do?
Okay, perfect. Awareness, first of all, that you got a gut inflammation, because you can't change anything until you become aware of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to have the light bulb go off like, holy cow, maybe my gut's a problem, right? And you're probably not going to find that answer in traditional medicine, because it may look like you got 15 heads. You're going to have to usually find that answer on your own, or through reading some of the books we talked about, or seeing a functional medicine practitioner, right? So one, it's important to remember also, too, that an overwhelmed system is very easy to overwhelm. So even when you want to change your plan and you want to get better, I find that people overload the system. They start taking 20 different supplements and switching their food intake up. They go and meet a complete like 180. And that's such a shock and awe to the body that the body actually resists that and can push back on you more.
Right.
So I usually tell people to ease into it slowly over time and realize that you should be looking at your nutrition and yourself, not on some 8-week diet, but for however long you want to live. So this is a long-term journey. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna zigzag and serpentine and go all over the place, but you have to remember that health is a direction, not a destination. Right? So it's something you want. So don't beat yourself up also if you have a yoo-hoo and a ding-dong one day, right? I mean, it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person, but you'll also get feedback on how horrific you feel when you eat that after you take a break from it for a while. So my first piece of advice is don't jump completely into an automatic 180 switch on anything. Ease your way in to build up your tolerance, okay?
All right.
The other one is digestion is critically dependent on hydration.
I was
if you are
so glad you said
dehydrated,
that.
Yeah. If you are dehydrated, you're not healing your gut. I don't care what you do to it. You got no chance whatsoever. Zero.
Thank you, Doc. I had it written down to ask about hydration because so many people, we have this fancy thing and we can figure out a lot of things about their body composition, including hydration. A lot of people are dehydrated, underhydrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of your lymph and like 89% of your blood and 99% of your cerebrospinal fluid, that's the fluid that goes around your brain and cleans your brain and goes around your spinal cord and your nerves, is water. So let me ask you a question. How well do you think they're going to work if you're dehydrated?
Oh, it's bad.
They're not.
They're not going to flow. No.
Right. And hang on to that a second. They're not going to flow. And here's my next question. When you eat all that food, how do you think it gets to a cell and out of a cell? Through those fluids.
Yeah.
That's the flow.
Right.
So what if they don't flow? Well,
we got a problem.
You don't get stuff out, and then are you going to heal? No or no?
No.
It's not.
Not at all.
So I read a quote once. It was Dr. Jerry Tennant who said, you're supposed to have a new gut lining every 3 days.
Wow. Doc, I got to interrupt 1 second. We're going to go to a break. Hang on to that one. Gut lining every 3 days. Yeah, we're going to go out to break. This is News Radio 570 WSYR, Your Health Matters. We'll be back with Dr. Perry Nickelston in just a couple of minutes. Okay, we're back for the final quarter of this hour with my special guest, Dr. Perry Nickelston. Folks, I just want to read something to you here. Well, no, I want to ask a question first. Now, I do this often, and some people don't really like it, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, but I do think about this myself as I'm 63 years old, and I feel like I'm 30. I've worked for that, but my body doesn't always agree. But, but I feel better now than I've probably ever felt. But I had to work for that, and it did take time. But I also think of, what about 20 years from now? What about 30 years? What about 40? I have every intention to be living another 40 or more years. And my question for you is, and I ask myself this, whose burden do I want to be? So how would that happen? Well, there's certain things, if I qualify this, you can't, you can't control everything, right? There's certain things out of your control that could happen that could put you in a position where you just can't, take care of yourself. Well, that's one thing. But what about things like not moving enough, not having enough muscle mass to sustain movement, balance, mobility, agility, all those things, to be able to get up the stairs, down the stairs safely and avoid falls. What about your diet? What if you keep feeding yourself really crappy stuff and packing that stuff in you and packing those cells with the crappy stuff, and you get, for some of us, and I've been there, I've been, for a short time in my life, I was obese, and for a long time I was overweight. So just packing the stuff in, eat, and, just completely negligent. So knowing what we know, especially with wisdom from Dr. Perry Nickelston, right? Yeah, I think it's a responsibility, really, to be mindful and think of, if I keep doing this to myself, if I keep shoving this crap in my mouth, if I keep being sedentary, whose burden will I be, and do I want to be? Because I know I do not want to be. Okay, so let's get back with Dr. Perry. Doc, you were saying about this gut lining thing. Every how many days?
3 days. You're
3?
supposed to have a new gut lining.
Holy cow.
So, I know, isn't that crazy? So then you have to ask yourself, well, why is my gut always a hot mess if it's supposed to be new every 3 days? Because you can't make new cells that work enough to rebuild it to keep it from having the quote-unquote leaky gut. And that ties back into all those things that we said before. What are you putting into it? Are you drinking enough water? What's your stress level like? Or do you have good blood flow going to your gut? I'll help you with that in a second. Mm-hmm. And, is your lymphatic system stagnated? Because if it is, your gut's going to be a hot mess and a half. Mm-hmm. Like, all those things are really going to contribute to, how resilient your gut is, not just what you eat. So the food's important. It's like putting, gas in your tank. I'd rather have good gas going in my tank, but it also depends on, how the parts of that car are working. Because you can start it, but everything else has to be a piece of the puzzle too. And hydration is a great start, because hydration is also probably the top cause of constipation.
Yeah.
So if you can get
that's huge.
Out,
that's a huge thing around the country too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but constipation is rampant and it's everywhere.
Right. So if you're constipated, if you don't have enough hydration for the gut and you're constipated, you're also going to have an environment in your brain set up for accumulation of waste and neuroinflammation. And then those two feed off of each other, via that vagus nerve. So that's a big one. And, of course, movement itself. Like, I just want people to get out, and walk is a great one. Walk is probably my favorite form of movement, because you're designed to do it, and we don't do it nearly enough. And actually just doing little mini rebounding bounces on your calf muscles, the balls of your feet, because that's going to pump the blood that is stagnant and down in the legs back up towards the heart. And guess what's going to bounce up and down all over the place? Your gut.
Your gut. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get movement in your gut. You probably want to run to the bathroom and poop after you do that, and you're going to help the digestion process of that, and you're going to get blood flow to your gut because it's moving around inside of you like a slosh pipe. Mm-hmm. So that's great. And the other one, when you just massage your belly. Like, people go for these massages for tight muscles in the back and in the calf and my shoulders. Well, rub your belly. Show your belly some love, because that's going to increase blood flow because you're rubbing it, but you'll also help that evacuation process and tame down some of that inflammation at the same time. So that's one of the first things that I tell people to do, is just love up your belly a little bit with some light massage all over the place. And
you're the best, man. You're the best educator. I'm telling you right now, Doc. You have the best catchphrases and words. Love up your belly. Seriously.
Yeah, it's so simple, but effective things don't have to be complicated. The basics and the fundamentals are usually not. And when I find somebody that's been sick for a long time with chronic inflammation or autoimmune disease, I find there's some kind of simple, basic fundamental that's been overlooked or disregarded or taken for granted. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes the answer is so simple it seems wrong. But you can't do the more complex things without that. For instance, like I said before, no diet, no supplement is going to work if you're dehydrated. So I tell people, drink more water and less of everything else. There's a good start. And I like to work the lymphatic system out, like I mentioned before. So if you rub your belly, you'll move that lymph. You can also do what we mentioned on the last show of our Stop Chasing Pain Big 6 Lymph Reset that you can see on our YouTube channel. You may link it on your stuff. You can do that. And another one is actually just try to give your gut a little bit of a break. Now, for me, I'm going to speak for me personally because not everybody can tolerate this, but I usually will tell people to look into it, and that's intermittent fasting. Just stop putting something in your mouth all the time and give your body a chance to just chill and relax and not have your immune system have to go after something all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's a big one. I do that on a fairly regular basis. Actually, I was doing that for years. And then I started having a little bit to eat in the morning, just some protein here and there, just as an experiment. But, we don't need as much as a lot of what we feel we need sometimes. I'm the first one to, let's say, be charged. I'm guilty as charged of, I don't usually go back for seconds, but man, if something tastes good, it's tough not to have just a little bit more that I actually don't need, right? Or the snack, the emotional, the stress eating. I've been guilty of that too. When I try to make it something healthy or just skip it, tough. It's a behavior. It's a habit. It's a go-to. I think for some of us, it might even be on a subconscious level, and we've got to become mindful of those behaviors so we can take control.
Yeah, I think most of it's subconsciously driven, that especially from an emotional level. You just don't realize it, and that's something where I learned a great tip from James Clear, who wrote the great book Atomic Habits. You may know of that one. And he said, in order to get yourself to do something more that you want to do more, make it more visible. Like if you're supposed to eat fruit, put fruit in front of you so you see it more often. And he said you do the opposite for stuff that you don't want. So, take your stuff in the fridge that you're not really supposed to have, put it towards the back so you don't see it, or put it towards the back of the cabinet so you don't see it, or get rid of it because it's not there.
Or don't buy it.
Just that simple thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is hard to do because when you go into the grocery store, it's set up for you to buy everything you're not supposed to buy.
Yeah.
That's how they get you. So
don't go shopping for groceries when you're hungry either, because I've done that. It's bad news.
Oh, that is bad. That's terrible.
Oh, yeah. That never works out well.
Try willpower. I don't go, if I want ice cream, I don't go by the ice cream aisle. Although last night I did.
So, Doc, we're actually coming up on an hour here in a couple of minutes, and radio minutes are the fastest of my life, but I love them so much, and having you is the best. Let me ask you this, so we can, close the show out with your words of wisdom. As what takeaway message do you recommend thinking about for our listeners?
Oh, thank you so very much, by the way, for having me on.
My pleasure.
Really enjoyable to speak with everyone. And let's just kind of review some of the basics. The biggest part is the awareness that the role the gut plays in your overall health and inflammation that you have anywhere, even that inflamed knee or back or wherever, okay? Look into it as it being an issue. And probably one of the best things you can do is just start to make small incremental changes into what you're ingesting. Try to eat more of the good stuff, not necessarily the bad stuff. And you already know what they are. I don't have to tell you what they are. Every diet book in the world tells you the same thing. You just have to actually follow it. Get better blood flow to your gut, jumping up and down, massaging it, that, and that'll also help decrease your stress.
Show the belly some love. Yeah, actually, Doc, I don't mean to cut you off. We got to head out in a couple of seconds.
No worries.
Dr. Perry Nickelston, thank you, my brother. Go to stopchasingpain.com, folks. You'll see his website. Go visit it. Check him out. Subscribe. Doctor, thank you so much, and thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in a little while with more.
The proceeding was a paid program by Karl Sterling. The content of this show is that of Karl Sterling and does not represent the views of the station or iHeartMedia. Some of the information contained in this program has not been approved by the FDA, nor is it intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any diseases. Information has been for general information only, and before considering anything discussed, you should contact your doctor or primary care physician. The following is a paid program by Karl Sterling. The content of the show is that of Karl Sterling and does not represent the views of this station or iHeartMedia. Some of the information contained in this program has not been approved by the FDA, nor is it intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any diseases. Information hereafter is for general information only, and before considering anything discussed, you should contact your doctor or primary care physician.